Every 40 seconds, someone in the US suffers a stroke, and for many, the signs were there. Subtle warnings that were unfortunately ignored or misunderstood. What if I told you that your body could be sending out critical red flags, sometimes up to 30 days before a major stroke occurs? Recognizing these early signals isn't just important, it can be the difference between a full recovery and lifelong disability, or even worse. In this video, you're going to learn about 6 early symptoms of a stroke that most people tragically miss. And by the time they finally decide to act, it's often already too late. Think of these symptoms as your body's desperate pleas, its way of begging you to listen and take action before something irreversible happens. Watch to the end, because we're going to break down each one, explain what's happening in your body, and why these signs are so crucial to identify. If you care about your health, hit that like button and subscribe for more expert health content that could literally save your life. 1. Persistently high blood pressure. High blood pressure is common, but its prevalence doesn't make it any less dangerous, especially when it comes to stroke risk. Think of your blood vessels as a complex system of pipes. High blood pressure is like running water through those pipes at an excessively high force. This constant pressure wears down the delicate inner lining of blood vessels. This lining, called the endothelium, is crucial for maintaining healthy blood flow and preventing clots. When it's damaged by high blood pressure, it can become stiff, narrowed, and more prone to injury. This damage creates a perfect storm for 2 main types of strokes. Firstly, the roughened surfaces of damaged arteries can become sites where cholesterol plaques build up, a condition known as atherosclerosis. These plaques can narrow the arteries, restricting blood flow to the brain. If a piece of this plaque breaks off, or a blood clot forms on its surface and blocks an artery, it leads to an ischemic stroke, which is the most common type. Secondly, persistently high blood pressure can weaken the walls of blood vessels to such an extent that they may eventually rupture. This leads to a hemorrhagic stroke, where bleeding occurs directly into the brain tissue or into the spaces surrounding the brain. The insidious thing about high blood pressure is that it's often called the silent killer for a reason. Many people walk around with dangerously high levels and feel perfectly fine. There might not be any obvious symptoms until significant damage has already occurred, or worse, until a stroke happens. That's why regular blood pressure checks are absolutely paramount. Knowing your numbers, your systolic and diastolic readings, is the first step in managing this risk. Don't assume you're okay just because you feel okay. If your blood pressure is consistently elevated, it's a clear signal that your cardiovascular system is under strain. So, if you haven't had your blood pressure checked recently, please make it a priority. Moving on to our second early warning sign, and this is one that's incredibly easy to dismiss: excessive fatigue. I'm not talking about the normal tiredness you feel after a long day or a tough workout. I mean a profound, unusual, and persistent sense of exhaustion that doesn't seem to have a clear cause. You might find yourself feeling completely drained even after a full night's sleep, or struggling to get through daily activities that you used to handle with ease. This isn't just being tired, it's a different level of weariness. Why is this kind of fatigue a potential red flag for a stroke? Well, it could indicate that there's reduced oxygen flow to your brain. Your brain is an incredibly energy-hungry organ, consuming about 20% of your body's oxygen, despite making up only about 2% of your body weight. If the blood vessels supplying your brain are becoming narrowed or partially blocked, the brain might not be getting the consistent supply of oxygen and nutrients it needs to function optimally. This subtle chronic oxygen deprivation can manifest as an overwhelming sense of fatigue. Your brain is essentially struggling, and that struggle can translate into a feeling of profound tiredness that rest doesn't seem to alleviate. It's your body's way of signaling that something is amiss with its most vital control center. The challenge with fatigue as a symptom is its non-specific nature. We all get tired. Stress, poor sleep, a demanding job, depression, many things can cause fatigue. But if you notice a new, persistent, and unexplained level of exhaustion, it's important not to just power through it or write it off as just getting older or being stressed. Consider the context. Is this fatigue different from your usual tiredness? Is it impacting your ability to function? If you're nodding along to these questions, it's worth a conversation with your doctor. Our third early warning sign involves your eyesight sudden vision problems. This isn't typically about a gradual decline in vision that might lead you to get new glasses. Instead, we're talking about abrupt changes like sudden blurry vision, experiencing double vision, diplopia, or even a temporary loss of vision in one or both eyes, sometimes described as a curtain falling, or a shade being pulled down. Why are sudden vision changes linked to stroke? The visual pathways in your brain are extensive and complex, and they require a rich blood supply. The occipital lobe at the back of your brain is primarily responsible for processing visual information, but other areas are involved too. Furthermore, the eyes themselves, particularly the retinas, are like extensions of the brain and have their own delicate blood vessels. Any interruption to blood flow in these critical areas can manifest as visual disturbances. For instance, if a small clot temporarily blocks an artery supplying the eye or parts of the brain responsible for vision, you might experience transient monocular blindness, loss of vision in one eye, often called amaurosis fugax. This can last for a few minutes and then resolve, but it's a very serious warning sign of underlying vascular disease and a high risk for a subsequent stroke. The key here is the sudden onset. If you're suddenly struggling to focus, or seeing two of everything when you weren't before, that's a red flag that needs immediate attention. If you experience any sudden, unexplained change in your vision, whether it's blurriness, double vision, dimming, or partial, complete loss of sight, even if it's temporary, it's crucial to seek medical evaluation promptly. Don't wait to see if it happens again. 4. Numbness or weakness, especially on one side. This early warning sign is one of the most classic and well-known indicators of a stroke, yet it can still be missed or misinterpreted, especially if it's subtle or transient sudden numbness or weakness, particularly if it affects only one side of the body. This could involve your face, one arm, or one leg, or a combination of these on the same side. You might notice a sudden drooping on one side of your face, an inability to lift one arm as high as the other, or a leg that suddenly feels heavy or drags when you walk. Why does this one-sidedness occur? Your brain is divided into two hemispheres, the left and the right, and for the most part, each hemisphere controls the opposite side of the body. When a stroke occurs, it typically affects a specific area in one hemisphere of the brain due to a blocked or ruptured blood vessel. This localized damage then disrupts the signals that the brain sends to the muscles on the contralateral, opposite side of the body, leading to weakness, hemiparesis, or complete paralysis, hemiplegia. Similarly, if the part of the brain responsible for processing sensory information from one side of the body is affected, you might experience numbness or a tingling pins and needles sensation, paresthesia, on that side. The key is that it's usually asymmetrical. Sometimes these symptoms can come on very suddenly and be quite dramatic. Other times, especially in the early stages or with TIAs, the weakness or numbness might be more subtle. You might just feel a little clumsy or notice a slight heaviness in a limb or a patch of skin that feels asleep. However, the sudden onset is a crucial clue. 5. Speech problems. This can manifest in a few different ways. You might experience slurred speech, medically known as dysarthria, where the words sound mumbled, thick, or indistinct, as if you're drunk, even though you haven't had any alcohol. This happens because a stroke can affect the brain regions that control the muscles used for speech, the tongue, lips, and vocal cords, leading to weakness or poor coordination of these muscles. Another common speech problem is difficulty finding or forming words or understanding what others are saying. This is broadly termed aphasia. If the stroke affects the language centers of the brain, which are typically in the left hemisphere for most right-handed individuals, and many left-handed individuals, you might struggle to retrieve the words you want to use the wrong words, or string words together in a way that doesn't make sense, expressive aphasia. Alternatively, you might have trouble understanding spoken or written language, receptive aphasia. Like the other symptoms we've discussed, the onset of these speech problems is typically sudden. One moment you're speaking and understanding normally, and the next you're struggling. This abrupt change is a critical indicator that something acute is happening in the brain. 6. Neurological issues. One of the early warning signs includes various neurological issues that can appear days or weeks before a major stroke. These symptoms can be subtle but are important harbingers. Sudden balance problems, unexplained dizziness or vertigo, new memory lapses or sudden confusion, and persistent nausea or vomiting without a clear cause. These symptoms can indicate a stroke affecting the cerebellum or brainstem. Balance issues, dizziness, memory problems, confusion, and nausea can be attributed to other conditions. Consider the context. Is the symptom new, sudden, or unexplained? We've covered a lot of critical information today, and I truly hope it empowers you. If any of these signs sounded familiar or even just made you stop and think about something you or a loved one has experienced, please don't brush them off. These aren't just minor inconveniences. They can be your body's early warning system screaming for attention. The most important next step is to talk to your doctor. Share your concerns, describe your symptoms accurately, and work with them to assess your risk. Stay informed about stroke prevention, understand your personal risk factors, and take proactive charge of your health. If this video helped you, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe for more life-saving health advice. And if you're serious about protecting your health, don't stop here. Watch this next video to keep learning how to stay one step ahead.